Narcissists can't love. Like, narcissists are incapable of loving another person. So people look at my content and they're like, wait a second, you're a narcissist. So that means you don't love your wife, right? That's how I've shown up. Like, I haven't shown up in a way that actually has loved my wife because I cheated on her, because I was mentally and emotionally abusive, because I was gaslighting her, because I was lying to her, because I was creating these environment where she was believing that she was the awful person, that it was all her fault. Like, creating this anxiety and stress that was overwhelming or causing panic attacks. All these things demonstrated on a day-to-day basis that I did not love my wife or my daughter. And so narcissists can't love. You've heard this. You've seen people communicate about it. And you understand to a degree that, hey, there's not an aspect that the narcissist can love, because how could they like actually love a person and do this to the other person? And it's true. Because in order to be this toxic, the narcissist can't look at someone else in a way of love. They have to look at someone else and vilify them. They have to look at someone else and be like, hey, you were the enemy, so therefore, even though I love you, I don't, right? Because I hate you, because you're actually the enemy, because you're trying to attack and expose the guilt and the shame that's inside me. Trying to break down my mask of how perfect I am, right? Like, there's all these different pieces here. You were the villain. No love. Narcissists can't love. It's impossible. Let's talk about that. When we talk about narcissism, there's this piece of running away from guilt and shame. There's a piece of trying to hide and avoid who they actually are. And then there's a piece of empathy that everyone wants to hold up and be like, narcissists have no empathy. 50%. Some do, some don't. DSM-5 doesn't even say they're incapable of it, just say they either lack it, but even more than that, they're unwilling to recognize or respond to your needs and feelings. They just don't care. Like, why do I want to respond to your needs and feelings and have to deal with my own feelings, have to deal with my own shit, have to deal with the fact that I'm wrong? Why would I want to do that? Yeah, not going to do that. Let's just focus on me. So when we talk about this piece of narcissists not being able to love, I need you to understand that there is one main thing that's blocking the narcissist from loving you. Like, there's one thing coming between you and between him that inhibits him from actually expressing true love to you. So many different pieces that go to it, but there's this one barrier, this one wall, this one thing that is in between that makes it impossible for a narcissist to love you. When I was first getting with my wife, like, I viewed that I loved her. I was like, oh yeah, it was this infatuation. It was this love bombing aspect. It was this high of happiness of like, oh, we're great. I love this person. When in reality, like, I wasn't demonstrating. I wasn't showing it. I was like slowly trying to control her. Because in my mind, the version of love that I had there was love was control. Like, if I control this person, if they like adore me, worship me, respect me, and I control them, then that's love. Like, there's a skewed version of what love actually was in my mind. So I viewed it a certain way, so it came out that way. Some of that was demonstrated in my own life, some of it was demonstrated in an upbringing, some of it was demonstrated in other relationships, but it was like, hey, if I have this level of control over the other person, then that means I love them. Now, I put it on the guise of like, oh, I just want to protect you. That's why I want to know your location. I just want to protect you because that's who I want to know, like, who you're going out with or who you're interacting with or what you're doing. There's all control. Slowly, subtly manipulating control. That was my version of love. So I couldn't actually have any different version of love till I changed that thought process, till I changed the definition of love inside my bones of like, hey, this has to change and grow and develop because this isn't working for me. This actually isn't giving me the love that I'm actually looking for, that I actually want. I don't know how to find this. So understanding it had to take a different role in my life. Now, narcissists can't love. We talked about that. We opened up with it. Narcissists can't love because there's a barrier in between. So as we're talking about it, like, here we are, barrier. Okay, here's the wall. You're on this side, narcissist on this side. Okay, you're over here, you're like, can't get to him. He's over here, can't get to you. Why? Because there's this big thing in the middle. What's this thing in the middle? What's the wall that's holding him from loving you? What's the wall that's holding him from actually showing love, care, and affection? It's his ego. His ego. Not wanting to be wrong. Not wanting to be accountable. Having to be right. Not wanting to show the shit that's inside. Not wanting to be honest. Ego keeps a narcissist from loving you. Now, it's interesting because ego comes into all of our lives at all different aspects. You have ego, I have ego, other people have ego. Like, everybody has different levels of ego. Question is, how are you going to let it affect you? As soon as two people get married, all of a sudden they're like, whoa, we have ego. Yeah, you do. Because all of a sudden you realize that even in the most selfless state, once you get with someone else, you're like, oh, I have to actually get rid of some of this ego because it's actually a barrier to me. Same thing with a narcissist. It's just there's a lot more of it. You come into the relationship with like 5% ego. He's like, ha, I've got 150. Try this on for size. Get through this wall. Yeah, because you're not going to be able to. And it's hard because you fall in love with a version of him, but there's not a version of love coming back from him because there's ego in the way. I can't break through this ego because my ego is more important than it is connecting with you. My ego is more important to protect my feelings than it is to deal with yours. You know why narcissist doesn't show empathy a lot of times? Because they don't want to deal with your feelings. Why? Because if he deals with your feelings, it shows him that he's wrong, and it shows him that he has feelings that he has to deal with that he hasn't because he's compartmentalized it. He's put it back. He's desensitized himself from it. He's been like, I don't have these feelings. Yeah, right, you do. You just don't want to deal with them. Like I discovered this like with my wife. Like she would be going through a tough time and feeling something. And after becoming aware and working on myself, there'd be these different times that she'd express feelings. And I'd be like, like I don't want to feel this. Like what's going on? And it wasn't because I was annoyed that she was feeling it. I was annoyed because I was taking that onto me. And I was starting to be like, wait a second. If I have to feel and acknowledge her feelings, it means I have to deal with my own shit. Like the stuff that I've suppressed, the stuff that I've hid, stuff that I've compartmentalized and boxed up so I can shove it away so I don't have to deal with it. Narcissists can't love you because of ego. Now, the hard part is you want to believe that he can love you. You want to believe that it's possible. Here's the part that messes people up. It is. If he's honest, vulnerable, shows consistent development. If he actually lowers his ego. That's the hard part because 50% of you are going to be like, see, Ben said there's hope, so let me stay in a toxic, abusive relationship, continuing to get abused. No, didn't say that. If you're with a guy right now who's not honest, who's not vulnerable, not showing consistent growth and development, lowering his ego, leave. And you're like, well, you just sound like my parents saying you don't like him and you just want me to leave. I know it's harder than that. But I do need something to try to wake you up and understand that if you don't see honesty in your relationship, you don't have a relationship and you're lying to yourself. You're believing a story. You're trying to make yourself feel better that you have something there when you actually don't. You have nothing. So whatever you're clinging on to, whatever you're holding on to, whatever image of the relationship you think you're maintaining, guess what? You're not. You're just living an empty life and you're becoming a shell of yourself and you're not sure, how do I even get free of this? And you can't get free of it because you're not seeing it for what it actually is. You're not viewing it by the facts, by the truth of the situation. So you understand, like you'll continue to be in this place where you'll hope and pray and think that maybe it'll work. But if he's not willing to let down his ego, if he's not willing to be honest, nothing will work and there is no capability of love. You know what's anti-narcissism? Like an attribute that if a narcissist had this, he would be like anti himself. Gratitude. Why? Because gratitude is having the narcissist look at someone else and say, hey, I appreciate you for you. I appreciate your character. I appreciate your life. I appreciate how you show up. I appreciate your funny quirks. I appreciate the narcissist. Like, whoa, too much appreciation going out the door. Let's pull this back in. Let's make sure we appreciate myself. Let's appreciate the mask. Can't do that. Anti-narcissism is gratitude. Is why no narcissist you'll ever find will truly experience joy. Can't. It's impossible. Why? Because of ego. Because of truth. Because of an unwillingness to be grateful for the people in his life. Do you see this? He's not capable of loving you because of the ego that's in the way. It's this giant barrier and giant wall. And until he's willing to take it down, nothing's going to happen. Now, the hard part is when we talk about it being a wall, the narcissist will look on the other side of the wall. He'll look down on you and be like, hey, see this wall? Yeah, this is because you built it. See this wall? This is my ego that doesn't let me love you. You see this wall? That's because you built it. You built it brick by brick by you being such a ridiculous person, by you being so disrespectful to me, by you not loving me the way that I'm supposed to be loved. You built this wall. It's bullshit. He built it and he started building it before he even met you because his ego was so big. He was like, I need to build a wall that's only one-sided, keeping you away from me to be able to maintain this giant image and head that I have because I'm not willing to actually be honest about me. Narcissist can't love you with ego in the way. Can't. He can't love you when it's all about control. Can't love you when he can't express gratitude and find joy. He can't love you because ego is this giant barrier that's in between you and him that he constructed and only he can tear down. That's not you. That's not your responsibility. That's not your job. So at this point, you have a choice. You can either invest in you, work on you, or you can continue to follow him and let him have dominance over you and keep on having the abuse. You can't fix him. You can't make him better, but you can lead yourself. And he sees the change and difference, and he either rises with you or he falls away because he's not willing to actually do the work. Most narcissists are not willing to do the work because they have to actually deconstruct the ego that they built over years. Most are too afraid, too scared, and will run away from it over and over and over again. If you want help with this, trying to deal with narcissistic abuse, trying to deal with being cheated on, trying to deal with the struggles, the frustrations of trying to find yourself again after a toxic relationship, go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough today.